Looking to have your groceries delivered? Try Instacart. By following the link in the show notes, you can shop multiple stores, get the products you love from local stores, get your delivery in as fast as 1 hour. Plus, Instacart highlights deals to save you money. And for our listeners, free delivery on your first order over $35. Hi, this is Bob Sorrentino from ItalianGenealogy.blog, and I'm here today with Traci Callister, who's been researching her roots, and our friend from Italy, Elena Gissi, who runs EG Ancestry Research. So welcome, Elena. Welcome, Traci.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Pleasure to have the both of you, and especially Traci. She's been having a little bit of an issue with the wildfires out there in the West. So we hope you're staying safe out there, Traci.
Yes, thank you. We are trying.
So, Traci, my first question for you is, and I always ask this question of everybody, how and why and when did you start researching your Italian roots?
Well, how I got into it happened a long time ago when I was a little girl. Back in the 70s, my aunt was trying to find our ancestors. She had back to her grandmother, who came from Italy. However, we thought she came from Switzerland. We didn't know at the time where she was from. And so she had researched for years trying to figure out where our family was from. And one day she came home and she had a dream. And in her dream, she was jogging on a dirt road, and she saw this lady in a long black dress and black veil walking towards her. And she hadn't had any luck with the genealogy and had put everything in a box and had decided she was just going to put it away for a while. And she said as she jogged towards this lady in her dream, the lady turned to her and said, "Don't forget my genealogy," and then kept walking. And as she was telling my grandmother this story, I just got chills, and I wanted to know who that lady was. And they got looking through an old box and found a picture of a lady in a long black dress and long black veil, and it was the lady that she had in her dream, and nobody knew who she was. My grandmother, there was no names on the back. My grandmother didn't know who it was. And so from that point on, I decided I was going to find out who Our Lady in Black was. And I was just a little girl, and our family spent 38 years trying to find her. And the rest of the story will come in a minute, I suppose.
Yeah, wow, that's an incredible story. And, I subscribe to the premise that things just don't happen by accident.
No.
But my story, similar in some respects, is, and I'll talk a little bit about the Piromalos later, but I couldn't find my dad's family at all. I couldn't find any records on the Sorrentinos in Naples. And they were, as I learned, they were fairly prominent. And I had hired someone to help with the research, and he came back with things on my dad's mom and her family, and one family more noble than the other, but nothing on the Sorrentino, and I asked them to help find them too. And my cousin, who lived with my dad's mom for many years, I hadn't heard from this researcher for about a year, and my cousin Louise passed away, and 2 days later, I got a data dump of everything Sorrentino.
Oh, my goodness.
So, coincidence?
No,
maybe.
Your cousin was helping you out there.
And the funny thing is, she was the person who I would always call and say, "Did you hear of this name? Did you know that name? What did Nanny say about that? What did she say about these things?"
Yeah.
So it's and I've talked to other people, same thing, and I think there seems to be one or two people in each family that has this calling or has somebody from beyond pushing them to do this research.
Yes, I think so too. My aunt had searched for years before. I was probably only about 10 to 12 years old when I heard this story, and it just grabbed me, and I was hooked after that. And we searched all over. We searched Switzerland inside and out, could not find anything. All their records, they had put Switzerland. And one night, about 4 years ago, I thought, I'm missing something. So I got a piece of paper out and I made a timeline, and I put every little bit of information I had, and I figured out that my grandmother, my great grandmother, her sister and brother came to the United States. And as I looked at this timeline, I had every little piece of information I needed, but the brothers' ship records. And so I started searching for that. And when I found them, it was the first time any of them had put Italy as their birthplace. And he had put Pino, Italy. And so I started searching Pino, Italy. It's on Lake Maggiore. And Pino is just a little small village of about maybe 200 people, if even that. And it had never been filmed. It had never been indexed. The records, you had to go to the parish to get the records. There was nothing on Family Search, Ancestry, anything like that. They'd never been photographed. And so then I thought, well, I'm stuck because I'm clear over here in Utah and I can't go to Italy. And so I put a message out on the internet. I like message boards. I like Facebook. I like stuff like that. And Elena answered my message and was willing to go to this little teeny town and search for the records for me. And by golly, she found everything I needed. And then as she found stuff, then she invited us to come over. She said, this is your family. You really should come over and look at all this. So that's where our two stories connect. Was she just hopped on to help a stranger, and she helped me solve a 38-year mystery.
Well, the tiny little town was marvelous. Pino, it's a wonderful town, and I think the call of the lady in black was so powerful to involve a person from the other side of the world to find her story. And I remember when I contacted Traci the first time, I read her message on a blog, and I thought, well, I always searched only my family, but I would like to do something for someone else. And so I contacted her, and she said, okay, if you want to go there, let's go there. And it was good for me because I was working in the office and I was spending there all my lifetime. And so I took some hours off and went to Pino, which is a wonderful place, amazing on the lake, wonderful view. And I researched and it was successful. And Traci will go on explaining.
Yes, she found my family home. She found the church that all of my ancestors were christened in. And you have to remember, I only had back to my great-grandmother, so I only had back to the early 1900s. She had talked to different people there in Pino, and so my husband had promised me if I ever found out where the lady in black was from, he'd take me there. And when Elena solved where she was from, he just said, okay, let's get plane tickets. So we had decided to plan our trip, and she met us at the airport, and yeah, the rest of our friendship is history. It's been great. She found a lot of stuff for me. As we got to Pino, I had gone to Roots Tech in Salt Lake City. I don't know if you've ever been to that, but it's a wonderful convention. And they had told me if you ever get over there, the priests are very protective of their records. So if you get something out, you get your camera ready to snap pictures because you won't be able to touch it. Well, when we got there, the priest had actually left his key, and we had full reign of the record room. And there were books there dating, how far did it go back, Elena? 1600s, late 1500s, that we held in our hands that probably have not been opened since then. But I was able to get 10 generations of my family while we were over there.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was,
and all in that same. They were all just in that same town.
They were. We went to this. So the church was absolutely beautiful, and all the paintings in it were original. I think they said it was built in the 1400s. This little town, all the homes are made of stone. We met a lady named Kiki, her husband Paulo. Their house was built in the 1200s, and they had actually added power and stuff to it. And she came and helped us research also. But the priest just let us have full reign, and it was in just this little room with no electricity. We had to open the shutters, and we researched by daylight, and it was the most amazing experience I've ever had.
That's incredible. I'm jealous.
I can't wait to go back.
Well, I was supposed to be there in April, and I had the whole we had the whole tour set up and everything.
Oh,
Elena, you may have heard of Italy Rooting. I'm working with Letizia from there, and um, uh, all my grandparents are from Italy. My mom's
Yes, from the
parents
south.
are
Yes.
yeah, my mom's parents are from Torito, and my dad's parents were from Naples, and we had the whole thing set up, and some of my grandmother's father's family, the town hall in Capricata is uh, was my third great grandmother's home.
wow.
She was the Duchess,
Wow.
uh, and her father, her husband, was Count Count Giacomo Piramalo from Montebello. So we were going to go to those places, um, and my grandmother's mom, which when I started this whole thing, I had no clue. I started with a little card from my great grandfather that my grandmother brought from Italy, that said that he was from the Dukes of Capricata, and my great grandmother is Caracciolo di Torchiarolo, and her grandfather was Prince Luigi from Naples.
Wow.
So it was just an incredible. The stuff I found was just unbelievable, and I was so excited to go there and actually see these places because the first time we were in Italy, we were at the train station a half a mile from Via Carbonaro, where everybody lived, and I had no idea at the time.
Oh,
It is very strange
wow.
that noble people end up immigrating in the USA. And usually it's poor people that do this, like Tracy's parents, like many Tracy's relatives and many other relatives. And Bob, why did your ancestors went to the USA?
And that's a good question, Elena, because that eluded me for such a very, very long time. And what I found was that my grandmother's aunt came to America in 1905 with her husband. I don't know why they came, um, but they did. And I would have to guess that her husband, his name was Pergamo. Maybe he had some kind of business deal here or something was going on. But anyway, they came in 1905. That's the
They sure came on first class, not third class like all the others.
probably, yeah, or at least second class. But that's when I kind of figured, because my grandmother was the only Piramalo that came to America that I could find, or besides her aunt. So there had to be some reason her aunt must have convinced her. Now, my great grandfather, although he had some station and all of that, um, he was the first son of the third son, so there were no titles involved. Although you could see from the photographs of uh, my grandmother and my aunts and uncles that were born there, and my great grandfather and his second wife, that they all had they had significant amount of money, unlike my mom's mom. So that's the only thing I could figure, but there's really nobody to ask.
Maybe someday you will find.
Maybe, possibly. I did connect with third and fourth cousins over there, and I was able to piece everything together with them, and looking at photographs and seeing the resemblance between people. And what happened, Elena, was very unusual, as you probably know. The My third great grandmother, the Duchess, got the title from when her brother died, and I guess there was nobody else in the family to give it to, but somehow she became the Duchess. She was Capici Piccicelli, and she merged the names Piramalo and Capici Piccicelli into one. But the only son who got those names was the oldest son. So my second great grandfather and his brothers didn't get that name, nor did uh, any of his cousins' family. So the only family that has that name today in Italy, the three names, are direct descendants from the first son of the Duchess and the Count.
Oh,
Everybody else just uses Piramalo.
oh,
That's
that
interesting.
is interesting.
Yeah, and it was making me nuts.
I bet. I understand. I was going crazy with this because I thought there's got to be somebody can't just disappear. I was anxious to be able to find some cousins, and actually, when we got planning our trip to Italy, and I had only been out of Utah a couple of times, so I'm not a world traveler, but I decided to do all my own uh, reservations and stuff. And I got on Verbo to see if there was any rentals by Pino. And in a 60-mile radius, there were 541 rentals. And I thought, oh, how am I going to narrow this down? So I narrowed it down by which ones looked like they had the most modern bathrooms, which that's important to me. So I got it narrowed to 2 rentals. And then I did eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And the one I landed on, I pushed rent. And the day before that, just one day before that, Elena had emailed me, and she had found out that my great-great-grandparents had, the grandmother had 3 pieces of property when she died. And only one daughter that we could find had stayed in that area, and she willed them to that daughter. Well, that daughter married, but she never had any children. And Elena had found where she had willed all that property to a man named Roberto Adelini and his 2 sisters. And Elena, I can remember I asking you, I says, well, who could that be? Is it cousins? And you had said, well, it possibly could just be neighbors that took care of her in her old age.
We will never know who he is.
Yeah, she said she'll never find out. So I pushed rent on that rental, and the girl that owned the rental was in Spain, but her parents lived by the rental in Pino, and she got on and told me, she asked why I was coming because she wanted to have maps and things ready for me. I said, well, I'm coming to do some family history. And she said, well, what names are you looking for? And so I told her the names I was looking for, and she kind of hesitated, and she said, let me get my mother on the phone to finish up this reservation. And then she came back on and she said, do you have any death dates of those people you're looking for? I gave her the death date, and anyway, she came back on and she says, we're the Adelini family. We're the ones that inherited the property. And they happen to be nieces and nephews of my great great aunt. Since she had no children, they were her husband's nieces and nephews. So the people that met me to rent the apartment I rented were family by marriage. And that is who Kiki, the other lady that helped us do the research, was. And they were just wonderful. They had a family documents. She was able to show me the family property. The house is still standing. It was just completely amazing.
That's crazy.
I know, all through eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I can't believe it worked.
That's an amazing story. Yeah, well, that goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's karma, fate, whatever you want to call it. You know, there's just something. You know.
It is, and so we took off for Italy, and Elena met us at the airport and took us to her home, fed us our first meal, and got back to our hotel that night. My husband and I got talking, and I said, you know, if one of our kids would have said they were flying to Europe and somebody they didn't know was going to meet them there and take them home and feed them, I probably would have strangled them, because I don't go with strangers. But we met Elena, and she was wonderful, and it's become a great friendship and great for her. She's able to start her own business through my Lady in Black, and I was able to find my family. It's just been an amazing journey.
Right.
Yes,
So Elena, I was gonna ask you that. So you were researching your own family at the beginning, and then because of this, you actually started your business. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody starts with researching his own family. And I was researching my family, but on my own without much motivation, because my family, my living family, is not really interested in genealogy. And when I met Traci, a new world opened to me, because I realized I could do the same job for other people and make them very happy. And it was much more interesting than doing it for myself or my family. And the way my ancestors' story is a bit dull, a bit boring. And well, when I met Traci, I discovered that there was so much to find out, and it's an investigation job. It's fantastic because in the end, everybody would like to be a detective, and I am my own small Sherlock Holmes. And I started doing for the others. Traci was very encouraging. She was promoting me. She was finding me customers. She was doing a wonderful job. Really, I really owe a lot to her. And in the past 2 years, I created a website and I started having some customers. I was doing researches in the free time for my office job, taking days off, and this thing grew up so much that last year I decided to quit with my office job. I've been working in an office for 29 years, so you can understand, and only work on genealogy. And I think I'm sure I did the right choice because uh, I love this job. I love to help people finding their story. I love to give them knowledge, and I love the human relationship that is being creating between the customers, and it's really fantastic. And everything I owe everything to Traci and to the lady in black, which is a lady that I had never thought she might even exist, but she changed my life.
Well, and she did the same for me. I'm never going to be able to pay Elena for. I mean, I would have never been able to come over and just search. I wanted to know before I came that that's where they were from, and if it wouldn't have been for her and her generosity, I probably would still be searching. But she has a really great knack for this, and she was able to find so many things. She even found a castle that my great great grandfather served in the military in, and was able to arrange a private tour for us. And I know she has, with a couple other customers, she's been able to arrange tours and stuff, and they've gone over and she's taken them to all their family sites. And she's very good at what she does, and she's very personable, and gets into the story that she's working on. And we just will never be able to repay her. We had the most amazing trip and so much fun, and we've got a great friendship to boot coming home. Elena and I will be forever friends. I mean, we'll stay connected forever.
We surely will. Yes. Thank you very much, my dear.
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with philitaly.com. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co. Yeah, that's fantastic. I thought about it. I've been doing this probably close to 15 years, with my family, and I help people here and there when I can, and I have the Facebook page that has about 1,600 people on it now, and I do the blog, and I started doing this really because I just like to talk about it and hear interesting stories, and if I could help somebody as a result of that, that's fun. But I think for me too, it's the detective work, and when you find something, it's so gratifying. And that's for yourself. So I can imagine if you help somebody else find something, it's probably even more gratifying.
Yes, every time I manage to hit a brick wall, someone with my customer, I feel like I won the lottery. But actually, it's my customer who won the lottery. But I'm happy for that. I'm really happy.
Say she's just really great. I remember when we got to, after we went to a hotel after we ate dinner with her, and then the next morning she drove to Pino with us. And the first time I put my feet out onto the road in Pino, the little parking lot we parked in, I just felt this feeling that came over me. It was almost like being homesick. I just felt like I was home. I had just come home. And she took us up through the village. And do you remember going to the church the first time, Elena?
Yes, I remember.
That church was absolutely, I think about it at nights. I just want to go back. I just yearned to go see that. It was just, the feeling overcame me. I knew my ancestors had been there. It was just amazing.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one of my quick brick wall stories. I guess my second great grandfather, uh, he married a woman, and her name was Elisa Mohr, Mohr, and obviously not an Italian name. And I eventually found out that she was from Lucerne, Switzerland. So
Ah,
now I'm thinking to myself, why is my great great grandfather marrying this woman from Lucerne, Switzerland, in Naples, in whatever year it was, 1860 or something like that. So I was just, as we probably all do, I was, just plugging things in on Google, and I came up with the registration of the officers from the Neapolitan Army in the 1860s. And I came across, now, of course, it's all in Italian. I speak very little Italian. I could read it a little bit, but it said that there was a Bernardo Mohr, and he was a captain in the Swiss Guard in Naples. So now I always thought the Swiss Guards, I thought, the Pope, that's the first thing you think of, right?
yeah.
Yes.
So then I found out that especially the Catholic cantons in Switzerland, they would rent out the soldiers to various places in Europe, and Naples was one of them. So I then found my second great grandfather, Filippo Caracciolo, who was a first lieutenant in the cavalry in the Neapolitan army at the exact same time that this Bernardo Mohr was there. So I figured he was a young officer. My future great grandmother was, probably a young girl from Switzerland. The father was in the army. They must have met. You try to piece these things together. They probably met at a dance or a function someplace, and they got married.
Huh.
It's nice when you can build a story like that from a few records.
Yeah. So then I put it out there. I found this site where from Switzerland, and they said, if you have a question about Swiss ancestry, we can answer in English, French, or German. So I asked him a question in English, and I said Bernardo Mohr was my great great grandfather. Elisa Mohr was his daughter, and the guy who read my email sent me this to a website that has the ancestry trees for Lucerne from the prominent families back to the 1300s.
I can understand it because I had a wonderful experience with the Swiss archives too. They are extremely helpful and have a lot of documents. In Italy, there's nothing like this.
Yeah, and then so I contacted somebody from one of the families, and he sent me a photograph of the Mohr family crest, although then they weren't nobility, but they have a sort of a crest, and the Caracciolo family from Lucerne with the two crests merged together with the family names and all of that.
That's wonderful.
It's just so, I know how I feel. Like I said earlier, I know how I feel when I find something like that. Getting something like that for somebody else must be like 10 times better.
It is. It's wonderful, really.
It's great. Just so I don't forget, we ended up, Elena sent us a photo, and she said, the lady in black should be in this photo. It was almost like Where's Waldo? It was a town photo of everybody that lived in the town at that time, and we actually did identify my lady in black in that photo, and she ended up being my great great grandmother. So we did finally identify her, and it's what I don't understand. You get looking on a lot of it, at least on the American side, a lot of Italian genealogy, and there was a lot of secrets, a lot of name changes, a lot of, they didn't talk about their families. They didn't, I know my grandmother grew up thinking she was French because they had changed the name from Bonetti to Bonnet when they came to the United States. So I don't know if there was a stigma back in that time if you were Italian coming into the United States, maybe, or maybe it was because they were poor. I don't know, but it seems like a lot of lines that I have followed.
Yes, I noticed that too. I noticed that. I have plenty of customers whose ancestors have different names than they had in Italy, and it's not just only adjusting the name like Carlo becomes Charles. It's just something completely different. I think when people emigrated from Italy, it's because they were poor, they were really starving. And going to America was such a big change that it was a way to cut out their to make a barrier between the wealthy future and the poor past. And so most of them got rid of the name also, or didn't care about keeping their roots in their name. I think
Kind of
so.
cut ties to start a new life, probably, huh?
Yeah, I think so. In my case, nobody changed any name, so it was it was simple for me.
You are lucky then. My goodness, you are lucky.
But the funny thing is my my mom's parents, they both had the same last name, Nicoletti,
Oh,
but they weren't related. And my grandfather's family originally was from Acquaviva dell'Infanti,
Oh, from
and
Bari, yes.
yeah, and my grandmother was from Torito. So somehow my grandfather made that, I don't know, 3 or 4 mile trip, whatever it was, which back then I guess was a long period of time. Um, and they had the same name. So research. And what's a great thing about Bari is the records are fantastic on the Antonati. There's everything out there.
We'll be right back.
Lafayette, we are here. The French history podcast for the American public by a Frenchman. Learn all about France's fascinating history, its great characters like Charlemagne, Joan of Arc, Louis XIV, or Napoleon, but also the great events that marked France, Europe, and sometimes the whole world. Lafayette, we are here. Available wherever you get your podcast or on LafayettePodcast.com. À bientôt.
Yes, the southern records are different from the northern records. You know that Italy was divided until 1861, and in the north we only have civil records starting from 1866. Before that, you have to go to the church, and like Traci was saying, it's not always easy to get access to the church, except for the Pino church, which was fantastic. While in the south, they started from the Napoleonic era to keep civil records, let's say 1806 or 9, and they went on without stopping until now. And so for the whole 19th century, you have civil records, which is fine because you can find them at the municipality or at the state archive, which is accessible even on internet. The northern records, you miss the most of the 19th century online, and you just have a few records at the beginning of the century and then the most recent records afterward. I think it's easier to search in the south than in the north, especially online.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And here's an interesting story, Elena, from my mom's side. When her parents came, they were obviously very, very poor. They were farmers. And they came because my grandfather had served in the Italian army in Libya. And my grandmother said, "You're not going to war again." World War II was breaking out. So they came to America, but they left their oldest son, my uncle Giovanni, in Italy, in Torito, with his grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed there until 1950. He never met his brothers and sisters, and he didn't see his parents for 45 years.
wow.
And all his children were born there, and they lived in the same house that my great grandfather lived in, and who knows how much longer before that. And what was really nice is that my youngest cousin interviewed my uncle in Barres before he passed away. And he just recently translated that into English so that we have the story of my uncle being in Italy from from roughly 1910, I guess, through 1950.
That's great.
And it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's
My
amazing.
great grandfather owned a cow, and he would go through the streets of Torito with my uncle and milk the cow if you wanted milk.
Oh, and then just give it to people or sell it to people for.
Yeah, well, he would go door to door apparently, and if you wanted a pint of milk, he would milk the cow.
Well, that's inventive. Maybe that's something people should try.
So, Elena, I want to ask you about. So now you have this business, which is fantastic.
Yes, it
That's
is.
great. So, what actually, if somebody wanted to hire you to do some stuff, what services do you provide?
Well, let's do the basic service is the genealogical research in archive, but I'm not really doing only that because I like to give the people what they need, what they ask for, even if it's such as maybe a strange request. If they ask me, go to the cemeteries, I go there. If I am to leave a message on the grave, I leave it. I'm researching living cousins, and I found some American and Italian cousins met, and it was a wonderful experience. Now I'm lately translating handwritten letters from Italian into English, which is quite difficult for an American, I think, because maybe they are grammarly poor or they are badly handwritten, and the letters are amazing. They are very precious. They contain a lot of information about the family. If I have to travel, I travel. If I have to go to the state archive or to the library or read books, I read books. I try to be as helpful as possible with people. And of course, I research in parish archives, state archives. I do ancestry tours. And what I like of this job is that it changes a lot. It's always new. Every research is a new adventure. You must learn from scratch the names, the places, the history of the place. And it's very challenging for me professionally and personally. So I never say no. In a couple of days, I need to go to Genova, to the State Archive, to look for, to read a document that my customer told me to read. And it's a topographical map of 1613 that should include names of people paying taxes. I don't even know how this document is made. I don't have any idea of what I will have in my hands in a couple of days. Such an old document, and whether it's written in Latin or in Italian, whether it's a map or a list, I don't know, but it's amazing this way. I will go and I will try to pick up the most out of it and have best for my customer.
Wow, that's really great, and I think I think it's that personal touch that people really like, and the
Yes.
ability to work with somebody to not just have a canned type of tour or we only do these things. I think that's really, really, really great.
It's important also for me.
She does put a personal touch on it, and she's a great tour guide. I know she's done that for a couple customers. I think maybe I was her first, and she just took us to all the different family sites and helped us understand, because I don't speak Italian either. She's great, and she's affordable. I think her prices are great, and she does take things to heart, and she's been able to have she was able to do the research for, was it Finding Your Roots, for one episode of that?
Yes, I did it last year, actually. I was contacted by Finding Your Roots, the TV show, and they asked me to check, to find a history of the family of an Italian-American actor, which I cannot say who he is because it still has to be aired probably next season. And I went to Genoa for 3 days and to Piacenza for 2 days. And I hope this American actor will be very pleased with the success, with the result. And I hope he will come to Italy, so I will drive him around too.
Well, yeah, I know Letizia, she did, and I could say it because it's been out there. She did the rooting with, was it John Turturro? I think that's his first name. Yeah, the actor, Italian actor, Italian American actor, and she did a similar thing with them. So, Elena, if people want to get in touch with you, what's your website name?
www.egancestryresearch.com. And I am on Facebook too. I'm on Instagram, and I am on a very important portal, a page which is called Cindy's List. I think Cindy's List helped me a lot. It's a website with plenty of links to other sites, and there's my site too.
Okay, well, that's great, and I really appreciate the time. This has been fantastic. I love hearing the stories, especially the eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who would ever believe that? That's incredible.
Well, yeah, I just want to tell people that are listening, don't give up. That's been 38 years of research for my family, and somewhere, sometime, something's going to fall right in their lap, and they will find their family, and it's just amazing when you do. Right now, I'm going to drop a couple of names just in case anybody is researching the same family, but we're looking for Capras, C-A-P-R-A, also Bonetti and Baroni. Those are the names I'm researching. Lake Maggiore, where we went, is a beautiful, beautiful area. It's half of the lake is Switzerland, the other half is Italy. So I did find family in Switzerland. But it's a beautiful place to visit. The people, I found that the Italian people are some of the warmest people I've ever met in my life. And it's just been amazing. And I love to tell my story. So I'm glad you had us on here.
No, it's been my pleasure.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's been great to have this chance. And it was my first podcast. I hope it went well.
It went great. And let's hope you have many more.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Follow us on Facebook in the Italian Genealogy group or at www.italiangenealogy.blog.